confirmed they will have at some point another election where they get behind closed doors, do a secret ballot, elect someone new, and then they still have to go to the floor. And meanwhile, they're also dealing with attendance issues now because a number of frustrated lawmakers decided to skip town and didn't want to stick around. But as of right now, Dana, no consensus, no speaker, and no ability to govern.
No, I'm going to keep it clean. Thank you so much, Melanie. I appreciate it. I actually want to go back. We're going to have a discussion about this in a minute. I want to go back to Israel. CNN's Nick Robertson is live there. Nick, what are you learning?
Well, we've just learned from the Israeli Defense Force that they have put some troops across the border into Gaza in the past 24 hours. They call it a local looking for the language here exactly, a local raid. And so a limited incursion. A local raid is a language they use to describe the troops that they've sent across into Gaza. It's not clear how many they've sent across. It's not clear yet what their mission was. It's not clear yet if their mission was successful. It's not clear yet if they had any casualties. But this is the first time since the weekend, since this big build-up of forces, that we've heard from the IDF that they have, in fact, sent troops inside the Gaza Strip. This, they say, was over the past 24 hours. The indication seems to be that this was limited, and the indication seems to be that it is over now, that those troops are out, and that would perhaps be within the sort of expected operational parameters for something like this, that the IDF would not announce something like this while they had forces over the border inside of Gaza itself.
It really is interesting that they did make this public, and you said very clearly that we don't know what the mission is right now. I mean, you would think it might be twofold. One is to try to get hostages. Another is that they located some of the terrorists or some of the higher-ranking officials in Hamas they are looking for. But what does it tell you that we know this information right now?
There's another thing to add to that mix of what it might be as well. It might be going in to recover bodies. It might be going in to recover soldiers who died over the weekend and have been on the other side of the fence. It could be as simple as that. But what it speaks to is that Israel is more and more on a footing where it can go into this very dangerous area for troops and be ready to protect itself and carry out a mission. And it's indicative that there will be more missions like this to come. I think until we get the details of precisely what it was, if it was more than just, let's say, a body recovery, then that will tell us that they're really on a forward footing at the moment.
Thank you so much for that, Nick. I want to bring back Colonel Cedric Leighton, who will hopefully continue to give us a bit of perspective on what Nick just reported. What are your thoughts?
So, Dana, the key indicator here is that this was a series of small raids, and every single one of the options you talked about, possibly a hostage recovery mission, possibly the business about going after senior leadership of Hamas, and or the recovery of the remains of dead Israeli soldiers. All of those are possibilities. I am thinking it's either number one or two at this point. In essence, what they're looking for would be a perfect thing for Israeli intelligence to recover its lost luster in the wake of the debacle on the strategic front. If they have a good tactical intelligence success where their special operations forces come in and they actually have a successful mission. Of course, we don't know yet whether or not the mission has been successful. We have no idea what the actual targets were, but it seems as if this is the kind of mission where special operations forces would go in and have very finite targets that would go in, and they would be able to take actions on them and meet limited objectives in that way.
Colonel, I'm just being told in my ear that the IDF says that they were, in fact, searching for hostages as part of this raid. We do not know if that was successful? Again, what does that tell you as a former intelligence officer?
So the likelihood is very high that we might be disappointed with the outcome of this, Dana, because of the way in which Hamas operates. But we could see, hopefully, some success, but I don't want to give anybody any false hope at this point in time. It's very early in this. The IDF, if things are successful, at some point the IDF is clearly going to announce that they have rescued hostages, and of course that would be a big political as well as military victory for the Israelis, and it would also clear the way for further incursions from an operational standpoint on the military side, further incursions of a more conventional nature if they choose to do them into Gaza. So that, we're kind of in this environment now. So if this was a hostage rescue mission or trying to find out where the hostages are, that would be a classic special operations mission, and it would be something that would have a high payoff for the Israeli political and military leadership.
Thank you so much for jumping on and helping us make sense of this breaking news. Fascinating and important breaking news. We are now also getting information from the White House that the president was just on a call with the families of missing Americans presumably held by Hamas terrorists. I want to talk about this and more with our panel, CNN's Audie Cornish, PBS NewsHour White House correspondent Laura Barron-Lopez, and Amy Walter, the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Cook Political Report. Let's just stay on President Biden and the way that he and his administration have been handling what's going on there, and just what we just heard from the White House minutes ago, which is that the president is talking to families of Americans presumed, we don't know for sure, but presumed to be held hostage by Hamas.
I mean, I think the president is doing what he's supposed to in this moment, right? As opposed to what we are seeing in the House and with House Republicans. I think that there is nothing more to be done than to be very, very direct and clear about what your position is. And he has done that through his speeches and actions. And the truth is, on the other side of the ledger, so to speak, the alleged frontrunner for Republicans is not having any kind of conversation like that. It has not been able to articulate in any way where he stands, what he thinks should be done. And so, for all the people who have been concerned about Joe Biden as a president, we are going to have a lot of performance here to judge going forward.
I should add, Laura, that we are told that there were 14 families who were represented on this call. The call lasted for over an hour, and it included not just President Biden, but also his National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, and Roger Carstens, who is his ambassador, a Trump holdover, I should note, and his ambassador who helps negotiate the release of hostages globally.
Yeah, I think that right now in this moment, I was just talking to a source earlier this morning who's close to President Biden, who's known him for a very long time, and who said that in this moment, President Biden is pretty comfortable, that this is his experience, whether it be in the Senate or as vice president, he has, right, and he has been in these positions for a very long time, has a relationship going back to the 80s with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and that on foreign policy, he's incredibly comfortable. And this is something that we're seeing right now in real time, that he came out and made a very forceful and direct speech, as Audie said, and has stuck to essentially what he believes in terms of his forceful support of Israel, but also trying to explicitly state that his administration, one of their main priorities, is to keep this as confined as possible and to make sure that it doesn't expand.
That's a great point. And then we move to the next question, which is the president. I think I agree with both of you. This is a stage on which he is incredibly comfortable. For many Americans, this is something they will be watching, but ultimately, we judge our presidents, at least politically and on election time, on domestic agenda, much more than foreign policy agenda. And so I think that is when we talk about what the sort of split screen right now between a Republican House dysfunction and a president who's, again, on territory where he feels really comfortable, where he's commanding the world stage, literally, is politically very appealing for Democrats and for Biden. As we go forward, I think as we get into a political season, the split screen may not be
But
quite as
here,
clear.
I've thought a lot about this because
Yeah.
same thing, right? Foreign issues or international issues tend to fade even when the images are striking. We saw this with Ukraine. I do feel like there's something different about the Middle East and the question of conflict between Israel and Palestinians, or in this case, Hamas, right, a terrorist group. One is that it doesn't go away quickly, right? It doesn't sort of fade. It can go for a long time. I don't think it's an accident that we heard from the voice of George Bush in just the last day or two in a speech of where he was weighing in on, well, the hard part comes when people realize how long it goes, when the wariness kicks in, and that will be hard for the president. And I do think there's always been something very particular about this part of the world that it just makes it hard to look away, and it makes it hard to say, even as an American, well, this somehow doesn't matter to our national politics. That's just hasn't really been how it's played out.
And Republicans in the Republican Party have often, especially in recent years, been very proud of their support of Israel, and we saw that they're in turmoil right now, not just with the House speakership, but also with their ability to show any type of support for Israel, because the leader of their party, as you pointed out, praised Hezbollah and also attacked Benjamin Netanyahu in a political speech.
He said this is Donald Trump we're talking about, has been very hurt very badly because of what happened here. He was not prepared, and Israel was not prepared. That's true, but is that really something that Republicans who are
Yeah, I just say this because Israel is
Pro-Israel.
preparing for, obviously, a
Yeah.
conflict of a scale of which we have
and there
not
was a
seen.
ton of
And that's not something that
backlash.
fades in
Yes,
a month or
a
two.
ton of backlash even from his opponents who typically are not willing to push back. Though as we get to this next phase, we may also we're likely to have division within the Democratic side, especially if what we are poised to see is incredible death and destruction and horror in Gaza. And so
It's just barely under the surface right now.
that's right, exactly.
Guys, thank you. We're going to have to take a quick break. We're going to go back to Israel. Stay with us.
I was stuck. Unresolved depression symptoms were in my way. I needed more from my antidepressant. Vraylar helped give it a lift.
Adding Vraylar to an antidepressant is clinically proven to help relieve overall depression symptoms better than an antidepressant.
President Biden is doing fantastic on the world stage. Now, if the world could only hear my song. To free the hostages. A song by Paul Beckman, Paul the Rainbow Song, created October 13th, 2023. Also the new and first leader of humankind in the free world. President Biden is doing terrific on the world stage. He's acting like a real president. President Biden's doing terrific on the world stage. The world stage, he's our president. Kudos to you, Mr. President. You're being exactly what we need, as opposed to what we saw Donald Trump do. Now, if the world could only hear my song, a song I made that can free the hostages, yeah. Now, if the world can only hear my song, a song I made that can free the hostages. Everyone maybe think you need missiles and bombs, guns and ammunition. Go in, go in, go in. But I've got an alternative. An alternative. Utilizing something we call capitalism. It's an alternative. Let my song get heard by the Palestinians, by the people, and I'll bet you'll get your hostages in no time at all. For an explanation of my mainstream name, Paul Beckman, my New Age name, Palu Rainbow Song, and when I utter and say, also by the new and first leader of humankind in the free world, please go to Internet Solutions and Songs 24-7 at Palu Rainbow Song bio on YouTube, and look for a playlist called Movie Song Reviews by Palu. There, look for some special videos that should be the first ones you see that come under the category of a special note. There'll be some videos and song videos. They'll all give an adequate explanation of all that plus more. Thank you very much. Namaste. I honor the divine in all.